Hi everyone, it's Teddy. Today, we'll be looking into the twisted case of the Candy family massacre. Try to imagine the absolute terror a 10-year-old boy would have experienced after waking up in the morning and coming out of his room, only to find everyone in his family dead. Everyone but him. His father, mother, and 3 older brothers are all lying in a pool of their blood. The story we'll be talking about today is so heartbreaking and frightening, and might leave you questioning if those whom you love the most are truly safe to be around.
At this point, I just wish the nightmare would be over. I wish it was all a bad dream, that we would wake up and that they would still be here.
Jonathan Candy's family looked just like any other normal American family. Some people might even describe them as a fitting image for the all-American family next door. They were a family of 4 boys and 2 parents. Everything looked very normal in this family. No one would have ever expected anything strange was going on behind the closed doors of the Candy family's home.
I had to see it for myself. I kept asking Cooper to please snap and text Ethan, and has he seen Ethan today? Has he talked to him? And I was calling Lindsay, and I was messaging Dylan, and nobody would respond.
They were your all-American family. This is something, I mean, I could live 100,000 lifetimes and never expect this out of me.
I could have never imagined that ever in my whole entire life, you know? And I'm still in shock.
Even their neighbors who saw and interacted with them almost every day never would have suspected anything horrible was going on in the home of the Candy family, who lived at the end of the cul-de-sac. An interview with the couple back in 2022 about one of their favorite bakery in Yukon during one Discovering Oklahoma episode showed the couple to be a young, vibrant, and happy family.
I come here twice a week in the morning just for their breakfast burritos, which are by far anything better than you can get around here. I love the carrot cake. I don't eat a lot of sweets, even with my last name. But I love the carrot cake.
I like the cannoli. The cannoli are good.
It's a tragedy that they are all gone now, leaving just the youngest son. The darkest part of this story isn't even the fact that they were all murdered. It would have been most likely easier and less painful for everyone to understand if a dangerous and armed man, or someone who just really wanted to hurt the family, broke in during the middle of the night and murdered them in cold blood. But no, that was not the case. The darkest part of this story is that the person who killed the wife and 3 children and also turned to kill himself is Jonathan Candy, and not any other person. The man who was meant to be the husband and father of the wife and children, and who was meant to support, love, and care for them. The same man that these people looked up to for safety is the same very person who took away their lives.
Him and his kids seemed like they always got along. He just was just a family man. I mean, I never expected this. We were just in total shock. Yeah. The kids were real friendly. Everybody here loved the kids. Swam here at his house regularly. They played with my dog.
Like we have families down here that they work, and he'd come over and mow their lawns and take care of the family. Anything you needed, he'd be there for you.
Jonathan Candy was a 42-year-old man from Yukon, Oklahoma. He worked as a part-time employee at the Paycom Center, one of Yukon's large arenas used to hold various events like concerts and sports tournaments. It was another basketball season, and Jonathan Candy had been spending some time working on the recent NBA games. It was the home game for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and everyone in the area was excited to see the trophy come home. Although he just worked part-time, his jokes and laughs always brought life to the arena. Jonathan Candy studied at Bishop McGuinness Catholic High School, and after he graduated, he married his sweetheart, Lindsay Terry. Lindsay grew up in Prague, Oklahoma. She was a member of the choir as a young girl, and she was always full of laughter. Jonathan Candy was the funny, goofy guy who loved to make jokes and make everyone laugh. And Lindsay Terry was the beautiful young lady who loved to laugh and was eventually swept off her feet by this goofy guy's charm and jokes. Their marriage seemed to go on smoothly. Even after many years of marriage and 4 sons, Jonathan and Lindsay Candy looked happily married. There was never any report of possible domestic violence or abuse of any sort. Their children also looked happy and lived like the average American kid. The Facebook page of the couple is filled with family photos of happy times, and anyone scrolling by would believe they were a regular, happy family. Jonathan always told his relatives and friends about how his family and children were his entire world. But then, on April 22nd, something no one could have thought or imagined occurred. The name of the Jonathan's family youngest son has been withheld for privacy reasons. But what we do know is that this little boy stepped out of his room on April 22nd, 2024, and he was expecting it to be like any other day. He didn't expect anything unusual. He slept through the night with a box fan blowing in his direction, so he couldn't have heard anything going on outside. The only thing he remembered hearing was the fire alarm that went off during the night, but he went soundly back to sleep right after that. At around 9:00 a.m., he stepped out of his room only to find his entire family in a pool of blood. At 9:30 a.m. on April 22nd, 2024, the 10-year-old boy called 911 and told the dispatcher that he found his entire family dead. Not too long after, the police arrived at the home of the Candy family near Southwest 29th Street and Check Hall Road. They entered the house and were shocked by what they saw. It was nothing short of a massacre. After their inspection, they saw 39-year-old Lindsay Candy, who had been shot and killed. She was murdered along with her sons, 18-year-old Dylan Candy, 14-year-old Ethan Candy, and 12-year-old Lucas Candy. The suspected killer, 42-year-old Jonathan Candy, was also found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. It didn't take too long to conclude that this was a case of murder-suicide, but the question on everyone's mind: why did this happen? The sole survivor was the 10-year-old who made the call to 911. Neighbors on Check Hall Road noticed as ambulance and police vehicles began to pull up into their neighbor's home. They were confused as to what might have occurred. After some time of investigation, it was revealed that the father, Jonathan Candy, allegedly hunted down and killed his wife and children one by one, except for the youngest son. An interview with Oklahoma officials revealed that 2 of the victims' bodies were found upstairs, and the other 2 were found downstairs. There were no signs of a struggle at the crime scene, which adds more confusion to what went down. In most cases like this one, it is unusual for the killer to spare just one person and kill everyone himself. If the intention was murder-suicide, everyone present is usually a casualty. What could have occurred? Why did Jonathan Candy decide to spare the youngest son? Is it possible he came to his senses last minute? Or did he have a special relationship with this child? Unfortunately, these questions might remain unanswered because there's no one to ask these questions to. The relatives of the Candy family realize how hard this would be on the young boy, and they think it's best to leave him out of any further investigations in the meantime. Till then, this case would remain a mystery. One of the officials in charge of the investigation, Dr. Joni Johnston, a clinical and forensic psychologist, said that the entire scenario was shocking to her. She has never witnessed a case where a parent murders some of the children and lets just one live. Friends and neighbors who saw Jonathan before the murders said everything seemed just fine to them. There was nothing unusual or out of place. Jonathan's colleagues specifically mentioned that he was at the Thunder Pelicans playoff game just hours before the tragic murders occurred. Nobody is sure if there are any warning signs that the people around the family should have picked up on. There was no sign of domestic violence, which is usually a common factor in murder-suicide cases. Up till now, no one can state or rightly speculate the motive behind the murders. All we know is that there was possibly an altercation between Jonathan and Lindsay on the night of the murders. No one knows what their argument could have been about, and why Jonathan decided that the best way to deal with the situation was to kill his wife and systemically hunt down and kill 3 of his kids. He seemed like a loving and supportive father, But what would make a father put a bullet through some of the people he claimed to love the most in the world?
But something may have happened. He kills his wife and several of his kids, and then just decides to kill himself, kind of to get out of it.
One possibility, I mean, there's so many possibilities, and I think one of them that I've thought about is it's possible that he kills his wife in the heat of some altercation. They're having some argument, and he, for whatever reason, just loses it, shoots her several times, kills her, and that is not premeditated. And there is no history of depression or those things that we're talking about. And then starts thinking that I can't leave my kids to face this. You know, I could not bear the thought of my children knowing that I murdered their mother, their father is a murderer, or I'm going to kill myself, and I can't bear the thought of my kids being left with no parents.
Ongoing investigations are trying to find out if there were any form of financial crises that the family was going through. Sometimes, financial crises in homes can lead to depression, particularly to the man who might feel the weight of the burden on his shoulders. This could result in distorted thinking and increase the chances of feeling like there's no hope and no help. Another factor investigators are considering is whether Jonathan had any form of mental health challenge that he was so good at hiding and didn't share with anyone. There's still a form of stigma around seeking help for mental health challenges, and those who don't end up seeking help usually end up making terrible mistakes that could affect their lives and the lives of those they love. Signs of depression in men are usually different from that in women. Men might not be able to mentally process well or vocally express their feelings of depression, so what they do oftentimes is to isolate themselves, and then they become irritable and edgy and express anger instead of showing sadness. Families, friends, and loved ones around them might not understand that these might be signs of depression and that the person might have suicidal tendencies. It's quite unfortunate when people don't seek help for mental health issues on time because, when they enter a certain stage of depression, they lose all hope in the world and believe the best thing they can do is kill themselves and take other people with them. The actual motive behind the murders is not known, so for now, this remains a mystery to everyone. On Lindsay Candy's Facebook page, one of her childhood friends, Connie Cruz, upon hearing the news, shared some details about the friendship between her and Lindsay. She said that Lindsay and she were both choristers in church when growing up, and that they sang side by side with each other in the choir. She also mentioned that she and Lindsay attended school together until they both graduated in 2002. A particular memory Connie Cruz shared helped everyone see the bright and playful nature Lindsay had. She said that as young girls, she and Lindsay hid in a treehouse and fell asleep there. Their parents couldn't find them, became worried, and called the police. At the end of the day, everyone laughed about the situation, stating how the girls gave them a fright of their lives, only to be found asleep in a treehouse. Cruz also mentioned that she and Lindsay had a friendship they could always pick up from where it left off. She stated how devastated she had been after hearing the news of the Candy family's death. She has been unable to imagine or process the entire thing. Cruz said on the Facebook page that Lindsay was so loved and special to many people. She specifically stated how fiercely loved Lindsay was by her boys, and how she brought laughter to every conversation, and the lives of her parents, her sister, and their girl group. Dylan Candy was the first son of Jonathan and Lindsay Candy. He was a social person who didn't find it hard to make friends, and it was obvious to everyone that he had a passion for drumming and music in general. Just last year, in May 2023, he graduated from Mustang High School. He loved playing in the marching band, and he attended Oklahoma Baptist University during the semester in fall to join the Bison Brigade. The Bison Brigade was OBU's marching band, and Dylan played their first bass drum. The director of athletic bands at OBU, Brian Stackhouse, mentioned that the only reason Dylan wasn't leading any section in the band was because he was a freshman, but he was placed in the position to play the complex first base because he was good at playing in the band. Brian Stackhouse said Dylan was an amazing young man who had a big heart. He described Dylan as someone happy at all times and who was always friendly to everyone regardless of if he was having a rough day. He was an excellent example to his peers on what it means to dedicate yourself to the team, how to work through hard situations, how to persevere, keep on showing up, and give it your absolute best. Stackhouse recalled that a core memory he had of Dylan was during band camp when he was told that he had a solo in the drum line. Dylan was so happy that he couldn't sit in one place, and he just went on with his day with so much excitement. Dylan's bandmates were encouraged to support one another as they dealt with the devastating news of his death. Dylan's bass drum and uniform would be set up as a memorial display to honor him and his family. 14-year-old Ethan Candy was the second son of the Candy family. He was a 9th grade student at Mustang North Middle School, and everyone in school knew him as this active, athletic young boy who was good at baseball. Ethan's coach said he was a very energetic and committed player who had a natural talent for the game and always played with so much gladness and intensity. He said Ethan had an inspiring spirit and a smile that could lighten people's mood. His coach, TJ Armstrong, was quite fond of Ethan. He was best friends with his son, and he believed he brought out the best in his son. He would usually call him Sweet Candy Man. Cooper Armstrong and Wyatt Livesey, Ethan's best friends, as well as his other friends, have been unable to fully process the loss of Ethan. A memorial bench is being set up at the Mustang Youth Sports Complex to honor his presence in their lives and the team. Lucas Candy was the youngest victim of the murders. He was 12 years old and was a student at Meadowbrook Intermediate. He was always seen playing around with the other young children during Ethan's soccer practice. He was full of life and was an active, smart kid. He would be remembered as a bright, joyful kid who loved to play outdoors and make new friends. One of the saddest parts of this tragic story is the fact that the youngest child and sole survivor of the Candy family would have to grow up knowing that his entire family was murdered by his father. At 10 years old, he's already set to face a future where he grows up without his immediate family. No dad, no mom, no siblings. In just one night, his entire life changed, and those whom he called family were no more. He might grow up needing closure of what happened, and sadly, might not be able to find an answer. This is a burden too heavy to be placed on a 10-year-old child, with his entire future ahead of him. He has been placed in the care of extended family members, and people in the community are coming together to show him as much support as possible to help him deal with this difficult reality. Social workers have been assigned to work closely with the family to make sure he receives every necessary emotional and psychological support. A GoFundMe has been set up for him, and people have been encouraged to give as much as they can to assist with his upkeep, education, and future needs. The support that has been received so far from the community has been very heartwarming and overwhelming, proving to the only surviving Candy son and their other family members that they are not alone in these painful times. No one ever saw this coming. This is one reason why the news is so shocking to those who knew the family. At the local station KF, Jonathan's family released a statement where they expressed how truly confused and devastated they were. They said they have so many questions they won't ever have answers to. One of Candy's family neighbors, 68-year-old Michael Burcham, said that it's hard for him to believe that his neighbors are no more and that he already misses them. Another neighbor, Brian Graham, mentioned how handy and helpful Jonathan was around the neighborhood. TJ Armstrong, Ethan's coach, said he chooses to remember Jonathan Candy as that great guy he always knew him as. Someone who was always thankful and was always giving hugs. His wife, Rhonda Armstrong, who had known the Candy family for over 3 years, said that whenever she went to their house or they came over, she never could stop smiling and laughing. They could make her forget about her bad day at work or her life struggles the moment she saw their smiles. She said Lindsay was always at Ethan's baseball game, with the loudest cheer as they played the games. Everyone who knew them saw them as a kind, sweet, and happy family, which made the idea of what happened to them even harder to believe. Investigators are trying to do a thorough search to find clues of whatever might have led up to Jonathan's drastic actions. They are trying to examine his interactions with friends and family to identify any possibility of a poor mental state. But because there have been no previous pointers to poor mental health, it has been particularly frustrating to figure out a clear motive behind his actions. However, authorities are using this incident as an avenue to inform people about the importance of seeking help in any case of mental health issues. They emphasize the fact that there is a need to break every stigma connected with seeking help. Jonathan Candy's case just goes further to show how those who seem happy and all right on the outside could be dealing with some deep inner trauma. Everyone is going through one thing or the other, so we need to learn to be compassionate with people we meet and take some time to connect and talk to our family and friends to ensure there is no buildup of negative emotion. Authorities have offered to help people who might be struggling to process their emotions or the news of Candy's family death by giving them access to support groups and counseling services. This seems like an absolute nightmare. Everyone wishes they would just wake up from. The Candy family were loved by many and would forever be dear in their hearts. As family and friends grieve the death of Jonathan, Lindsay, Dylan, Ethan, and Lucas Candy, they also realize that the priority at a time like this is to ensure the survivor of the Candy family receives as much support and love as possible. We've come to the end of today's episode. Stay tuned for more stories of the most twisted cases ever. Don't leave without hitting the subscribe button if you haven't already and liking this video. Thanks. See you in the next video.